Speaker, I would like to...
Muguka.
I think Mira. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, because the resolutions that you have made this morning have already given us solutions. And I want to give you an example of this message that I have. There is the issue of the woman you met on Saturday, who has a balance in Ikanga Girls of 56,320. Are you going to clear this, or the student should go to university? I have responded, the student should go direct to university. So I would like to thank you very much for that. Mr. Speaker, this is my question. That I have students who have been wrongly banded. I know them, I know their parents, and they are in band 1 and 2. But they have been given band 4, band 3, 4, and 5. And I would like to ask the PS, who I agree that she has really tried to answer these questions, but I would like to ask, is it possible to compare the data that you are receiving with the data from the secondary school? Not comparing with the secondary school that child went to, but the data from that secondary school, because the children are known, and link it with what the Honorable Member for Kishugu has said. Or also link it to data from the ground, from provincial administration, because these children are known from the Ministry of Interior. Will be able to get data now that there are universities that are not telling the truth. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, allow me, Mr. Speaker, that Parliament is given information that is factual. The statements are factual. Now, I can tell you and prove to you that some of this information you have given here is not correct. And we have said, and I agree with what Honorable Kishuma said, there is no information on the ground. I have and I engaged Madam PS, and you need to confirm, because I went to the ministry at the county level, I went to the sub-county, at the constituency level. What you have written here is wrong. Please correct that impression that you have created. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, you need to convince us that this mean testing is correct. I would have expected you to come to Parliament with the data tabulated per region, per criteria that you have used to justify that the mean testing that you are using is correct. Now, without that, you cannot claim that a student are following by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is wrong.
You've made your point. Carol Omondi.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I'll try to be very brief. Let me start by saying that this issue is not new to Kenya. I think one of the countries with the best funding model for university education is Canada. And it is very highly automated, so that there's no fraud, there's no corruption, and the system works. I think the biggest problem we have here is the way these social parameters are being applied. We are dealing with a financial question, but we are applying social parameters, not financial tools. I think that is the biggest problem in this model. And what I would recommend is, if you look at all these social parameters, they will not tell you what somebody's income is or financial status is. You need to approach this thing using financial tools, like you are a credit committee in a bank. And this information is there. And the application, I would suggest, are made while people are still in high school, so that the teachers and the students can work together and capture the historical data on how those students have been financed over the years and fitted into the matrix, whatever system you call it. If you have a bank credit system, every parent has a telephone number these days. You can go and get M-Pesa records of a family, and you will know their income. You can go to KRA. You can go to salary slips. There's enough financial tools that if we apply to this system, we will get to know who are in need and who are not in need. Because if we leave it blank and use social parameters like polygamy and all these other things I'm seeing here, we are opening a very good system to fraud and corruption, and to politicians like us who will want to encourage people to go and get loans without having the responsibility to pay for them. This system only works where there is honesty and where there is repayment and where there is no corruption. So the first thing you must do is to change the parameters. Don't focus on the social parameters as much. Use financial tools. Thirdly, I think for those students who have applied, and they should apply while they are still in high school, when they get the letter, that letter should serve as a guarantee for their admission, even before the funds are disbursed. Then we will solve a lot of these other problems you see us having here. But otherwise, Mr. Speaker, social parameters, open to manipulation, open to corruption, we will kill a good idea. Start using financial tools in making analysis of who is in need. People will not go to the wrong banks if you act as a credit committee of a bank. And the information is there. Let nobody tell you there's no information. There's enough information. How much did you farm last time? How much crops did you harvest? It is there because people are receiving fertilizer. People are receiving different things. Otherwise, these social parameters will not help us. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Maclap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All of them, you'll answer them together.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief and candid. Number one, Mr. Speaker, using this right after they have used bans on monthly income of families to determine what a family or a student should pay. When you turn to the other page, Mr. Speaker, they are saying there is a mini testing tool, and they have come up with parents, gender, cost, expenditure. Mr. Speaker, there is no collinearity between these social factors that do not have an assigned figure mathematically and the incomes of the families. Mr. Speaker, the incomes of the families are determined by salaried people. Salaried people. To determine these bands are determined by salaried people. But those who are not salaried, Mr. Speaker, are actually unique. It's unpredictable. So they are using an imagined constant as opposed to continuous variables that continue to affect income of families. So I will challenge that, Mr. Speaker. Two, and propose this, Mr. Speaker, and going to the last. I propose to the team that this thinking of funding of university is good, but requires refinery. Mr. Speaker, if you do 5% on cost over cost in university and allow the students pay the fees on 5% of the cost that they do, as opposed to these funds, then you will have a graduated, evenly funding, Mr. Speaker, that do not discriminate and based on what you earn, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, is the parties, Mr. Speaker, the resolutions that we want to come to this house, because you have invited us to come to this house, not in vain, but to sort out a problem in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, resolution number 1 that you've said to come out very clearly this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, because the students are being admitted daily, is number 1, the students do report to university and the university sort out the accommodation and the appeals and the applications when they are in the university unconditionally. Second, Mr. Speaker, that a degree, as you say, Mr. Speaker, of all certificates health, I am lucky because in the schools that I have called to release certificates, because I am aware, Mr. Speaker, of a circular from the Ministry of Education saying that all secondary schools to release certificates, and they are not doing it because of this communication. So, Mr. Speaker, that should communicate it throughout the Republic of Kenya. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the parties, the presidential party to funding of university education. So, Speaker, can we review this so that you include the members of this house, because this is where the rubber meets with the road. We know what is happening in Kenya. We don't want people to make decisions who are living in utopia. We are the people who meet with the customer daily basis, Mr. Speaker, and we have the best solution for education in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I beg to raise my case, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Aldai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have really raised my hand because I really wanted to bring out this point.
You have now
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This means testing instrument, I think, is now the biggest elephant in this room. It is bigger than everything else because the methodology or or all these parameters they've set up are what is actually causing students to be placed in bands that they do not belong. I will take a student from the Nandi escarpment, where I come from, the lower hills of the escarpment, who has been called to Nairobi University. He has filled this form because when he tried filling, he came to a cyber near, maybe far away from his home, tried filling this despite the difficulties, filled this information, told you, and this information they come and check on whether you are marginalized. That particular kid is marginalized, but because our data here in Nairobi does not show that this kid who is living in an escarpment is marginalized, he will get a 0 or whatever rating that he'll get there, yet that kid for real is marginalized. You come to a child, maybe has both parents, but because the system says when you have both parents, maybe your rating goes down. When you have one parent, the rating goes up. There are even families where one parent or an orphan who were given inheritances that are better than situations where both parents exist. So if you look at the whole MTI tool that is being used, that is where the elephant in this room is. And therefore, and when you tell these students, come back for a review of your rating, they will still use the same tool to review the same student. So at the end of the day, it is a zero-sum game because this student will go to Nairobi University, comes from Aldai, go to Nairobi University.
University of Nairobi?
University of Nairobi, okay.
Yeah.
The University of Nairobi.
Yes. The University of Nairobi.
University of Nairobi. And they are told, come back and review. The person seated at that desk reviewing does not understand the difficulties this child is coming from. And he's told, okay, so what do we want us to change here? The child changes 1, 2 things. They review the child from band 5 to band 4. Yet that child actually needs to be in band 1 because of the situation in which they are in. So my issue, Mr. Speaker, is that this particular banding and this particular review is the major elephant in the room, which is something that needs to be relooked at. And I would like the suggestion that reviews of these students be done right at the location, at the village level, because we have not reached this level.
Member.
We've not reached this level as a country to be able to band and review students like this, because even us as human beings, we don't give the correct data. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we have so many budgets all over, like the political parties fund. It can also be used and be taken to universities so that universities can get more funding for students to upgrade the facilities and all those kind of things. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's have them answer that. I'll still, yes, what's your point of order, Wakili?
Mr. Speaker, I think from what I've listened to all the members, I think we have reached a level whereby, Mr. Speaker, we have started repeating ourselves. I think, Mr. Speaker, it's high time you give directions. No, I've not spoken. It's a high time, Mr. Speaker, you give directions. I think we have captured the elephant in the room, the MTI, the communication, the bundling together of the bursary. I think it's high time, Mr. Speaker, so at least again, we can be able to conclude. Kindly, Mr. Speaker, I request that you give directions. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I have a different point, please. I beg you.
Just hold your horses, Mama.
Thank you.
Honorable.
I didn't say ride your horses. Hold your horses.